Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Whittle's Read. Today I'm going to do my first 5-star predictions video. And I'm actually very excited about this video just because I'm really excited about these books. And some of them you've seen before, some of them you haven't, but I'm going to get straight into it. The first one I'm going to talk about is this one, The Way of Kings Part 2 by Brandon Sanderson. And this book comes straight along with an apology because I recently filmed, it's not even uploaded yet, a September TBR video where I talk about how excited I am for a TBR I'm about to upload and all the books I'm going to get to, and I have already broken that promise because this is a book that wasn't on that list, but I have picked up and started reading, but I have a bit of a justification. This is Way of Kings Part 2, and for anyone who doesn't know, this isn't a sequel, this isn't a second book. It is part 2 of the first book. Brandon Sanderson, when he published these books as paperbacks, because they are so big, chopped them straight down the middle. So basically, for the past few months, I have been halfway through a book and just not started reading the second. I was just not ready to dive back into another 600-page fantasy book. And it's interesting, this book, and why it's here, because Way of Kings has been lauded by some of the people whose opinions I trust most about books, especially fantasy books, as maybe the best fantasy book ever, so many people's favourites. And the first one I enjoyed, the world building is excellent, I'll talk about that in a bit, but wasn't 5 stars. However, I've only read the first half of a massive book, and he's kind of set up all the dominoes, and I expect that this is where they will come crashing down. I think this is the book where all of the promises that were made get cashed, and it's almost like I'm thinking about it wrong in my head, because I'm judging it, the first book isn't the best book if judged in isolation, but it isn't a book. It's half of a book. It would be like judging any book when you'd stop halfway through, and that would just be a really dumb way to judge books. So I am trusting that, this is going to be where all the cool stuff happens. This is the one I'm really excited to get to, and I just had to, as soon as the urge to read it came along, I had to pounce on it, because again, I've been sitting on this for a few months and haven't wanted to get into it. But now I'm really excited. And this makes the 5-star predictions mostly because of those opinions of everyone else I've heard. People love Sanderson. This is my first voyage, really, with Brandon Sanderson. I haven't read Mistborn or any of his other works, and obviously Way of Kings is the first in the Stormlight archives, so I really did enjoy the first one. It's a brilliant piece of fantasy, but it hasn't reached the heights I was expecting it to at that point. I was immediately sucked into Name of the Wind in a way that I wasn't with this, but I have faith in all the people whose opinions I trust and in Sanderson in general, and that this book is going to cash in on all of that and be all the better for the building the first one has done, the foundations that have been set. So I'm very excited to see where this book goes. For anyone who doesn't know, just a brief synopsis. It follows 3 characters. The world is so deep. There's an entire hierarchy, like a structure within the society of different ranks and different people, and our 3 characters are from 3 different regions within that. We have a boy who's the son of a surgeon who goes off to be a soldier but is now fallen on some really hard luck and is basically in indentured servitude. You then have a young woman whose father was a wealthy equivalent of a lord. It has its own names and things like that, and I haven't read it long enough to remember them all perfectly, but a lord who got in massive financial trouble and has since passed away, and she is trying to go along with her own plan to try to save her house. And it is very interesting, some of the ethical dilemmas she comes up with. And the third is the son of a legendary warrior. He's on the highest of the high in this world, a kind of a hero, a living legend. But his dad's losing it a bit, he thinks. He thinks his dad's lost his edge and is just starting to have trouble potentially seeing things that aren't there. I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but so, you have the very, very high, you've kind of got a middle, and you've got a very low in this world, and they all have different perspectives, but it's very much the same world, and you can see the things that combine them together, even though their stories are quite separate. And it's a very interesting thing to read, and even everything down to the plant life has been built. Brandon Sanderson has just built such a thorough world with different peoples and hierarchies and social conventions, and the fauna and flora are entirely unique, and it's probably one of the best examples of world building you're going to find in fantasy, which I very much enjoyed. And so I love the world already. It's now all those stories in the world to come to fruition that I'm looking forward to. So yes, very much looking forward to this, and I'll get back onto the rest of that TBR. I promise. The second book is this one, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Anyone who doesn't recognize this edition, this is the British cover. I am more used to seeing the American cover, which has the very distraught man on the front cover. But yes, this is the British cover, which I think is lovely, especially the spine, and yes, Picador. I've loved every Picador edition I have seen so far. They seem to be constantly knocking it out of the park. But yes, this book I've seen, and it really got put on my radar by Paperback Dreams, and from everything that she's told me, through her videos, not personally, this book is going to hurt me. But I think I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know what that says about me, but that's the vibe I'm getting. Apparently, like, this book is like a masterwork of emotional manipulation. I don't know anyone who hasn't cried at this book. Everyone, like, I even saw the comments on one video talking about there was some poor girl who read the last 100 pages on a plane and was just bawling her eyes out, and like the stewardesses had to come and console her. Like, you don't want to read this outside of the house, honestly. This is going to be a book that I think will wreck me, because like I have not read, like, this book wouldn't have been even on my TBR a year ago, or maybe even 6 months ago, because it's about people. It's entirely about people, and those are stories I haven't read until recently, but some of my favorite stories, and some of my, you know, a video I'd love to do is a series on books I never expected to be 5 stars, and on that list would be Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton and Normal People by Sally Rooney. Those are both 5 stars and about people, and something I never would have read before this year. And I think this is the first book I've picked up intentionally along that vein, and I know it's about people, and I still think I'm going to love it. This is really reflective of a change in my reading tastes, and I hope I can live through it. It's going to be a big one, and it's a chunky book. But yeah, I think I'm going to love it, and I think it's something that's going to stick with me, as any trauma would. The next one is a bit of a cheat, and it's this. Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the Penguin Galaxy edition, which V got me, and I absolutely love it. So this is actually the first trilogy, the first 3. But I'm talking just about the first one. The reason this is a bit of a cheat is I've already read Dune, and I already gave it 5 stars. But that was years ago, and I don't really remember it. So I don't really see it as having earned my 5 stars. I feel like I was such a different person then. But I don't think I've changed massively. I still think it will hit that 5 star. It's still renowned as one of the best sci-fi books ever. I'm so excited for the movie at the end of the year. Denis Villeneuve, I think that's his name. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. Who directed my favorite movie ever, Blade Runner 2049. So I'm going to have to read this before the movie, and I'm extremely excited. And I think this book is going to earn that 5 stars again, though it really, I can remember so little about it that it is going to have to earn it again from scratch, to be honest, even though it would be kind of embarrassing. I feel like if I didn't give it 5 stars, I'd have like an identity crisis, because this is a book, like whenever anyone asks, you know, what's your favorite book, this is one of the ones that often comes up. It's like American Gods, Name of the Wind, Dune, it's Lord of the Rings. Those are the books that come up, and it's really embarrassing if I've been giving that book out and then I read it again and I think it's only okay, but I do think that this is going to be a 5-star read. The next book I'm going to talk about is this, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This will be my first N.K. Jemisin, and I'm extremely excited. It's an urban fantasy, the only urban fantasy I've ever read, even if you can call it an urban fantasy, because what our genres really is American Gods, and it's one of my favourite books ever, as I just mentioned. And this is not in the same vein, like I don't think it involves gods or anything like that, but it's an urban fantasy. The only thing I hope is, because it's about, you know, these cities having their own identities, I believe, from what I've heard of other people giving a synopsis of it. Because again, I really do try to stay away from thorough synopses of the books I'm about to read. And I just hope that, because it's an American book and these are American cities, I hope I can still relate to it as a non-American. That's the only potential sticking point. But, you know, American Gods has got American in the name, and it was no problem there. So I don't see why it would. But yeah, again, this has been getting incredible reviews and is being lauded by Peruse Project, who has never like taken a step wrong in my eyes. So I really trust her recommendation, and I'm really excited to get into N.K. Jemisin because she's all over BookTube, and deservedly so. And this edition is actually really cool because this is the paperback. I couldn't find the hardback. This is one of those books, every once in a while there's a book that I just absolutely have to find in person, and this was one of them, and I did, and it wasn't the hardback. So I've ended up with a paperback version. I don't know if this is still true for the hardback, and I don't know if it's going to come up on camera, but over here you've got like a ghostly tentacle that when you're looking at it straight on, you can't see it unless you get it reflected in the sunlight, and there's like a tentacle there and a tentacle there. Like, there's some mysterious stuff going on. There's some... Yeah, it's already got my intrigue just from the cover, but I really do think I'm going to love this book, because this is my really real big foray into fantasy I don't know much about this year, and I'm very, very excited for it. The next book is one that honestly kind of already has earned a 5-star. The Two Towers by J.A.R. Tolkien. I read The Fellowship of the Ring early in the year. I've never read The Lord of the Rings before this year. I watched the movies and absolutely adored the universe. You know, I've played the video games. I've read stuff online about the greater universe. So I've had kind of an understanding of the world already before going into it. And then Tolkien really just swept me off my feet. The Fellowship of the Ring, it's just... It's hard to describe. The book is just so jubilant. The book just has so much joy, even though it has so much darkness at the same time. The whole crux of this book is hope. It's unlikely heroes undertaking an impossible quest that they are expected to, like, completely... I wouldn't even say underestimated, because, you know, you don't know unless you read whether they succeed, but they're just so not expected to be able to do what they do, and just take it on with so much grace and humility. There's such a sense of brotherhood and just love and joy and hope for a better tomorrow in this book. Well, in Fellowship of the Ring, but the one thing to know is, you know, Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King are all one book, The Lord of the Rings, which were just separated out into 3 parts. And so I don't see why there should be any rapid change in anything. This just should continue on from where the last one left off. And if it is anything like Fellowship of the Ring, like, Lord of the Rings as a book, just from Fellowship, has already earned a 5 stars from me. So this book would have to do a lot wrong for it to lose that status. I cannot wait to get into this book. The only reason I haven't is because I like to take my time. Like, with Fellowship of the Ring, even though I didn't find it a hard read at all, and I loved reading it, I'd only read, like, 10, 15, 20 pages at a time. This is a very tall edition, so, like, a page actually has a lot of, you know, they're big pages, because I didn't want to rush through it. I just wanted to take my time. But at the moment, I've wanted to get through books. I'm really enjoying getting through the books that have been on my shelves for years, that I've been collecting, and so I didn't want to sit down and spend a lot of time just on one book. But that's going to change soon. At the very latest, this will probably be my first book of 2021, if I don't get to it before then. But if I reach... I really, really would love to get to a 50 books by the end of the year goal, and I hate that I'm limiting what I'm reading based off of that. But it's still something I do want to do. And if I reach 50 books before the end of the year, the next book I'm picking up after that, as a reward to myself, is The Two Towers by J.A.R. Tolkien. I can't wait to get through the rest of The Lord of the Rings. It's just... Also, this edition, which is beautiful. This is the 70th anniversary edition of The Lord of the Rings. The cover designs of all of these books, you can actually see Fellowship of the Ring over on our Bookstagram page, which will be linked in our channel About and also on the banner. All of the cover art, these are based off of Tolkien's original sketches and original ideas, and even the editing of the book the book has been so thoroughly edited to correct things back to Tolkien's original ideas, because sometimes editors made mistakes and corrected things that weren't mistakes. And Tolkien was a linguist, so he cared so much about the language. So this is so thoroughly, through so much love, been cared for and kind of nurtured back into the pure original brainchild of Tolkien. And it even comes along, there's little footnotes. The footnotes aren't actually in here. There's a whole, it's almost bigger than the entire trilogy itself, a reader's companion with this edition, which I'm not going into that the first time through. I just want to read the books, but then the second time through, I think I'm going to be rereading these often, and so I really would love to then get into all the other bits, the book outside of the book, once I'm through. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful editions that I will show off at some point. We're going to do videos in the future on, like, our collections or our editions that we really love, and that is one of the first ones I'd want to showcase. But yes, final 5-star read, the one that is the king of this list. I don't think it's going anywhere. Even the one I've already read is not as firm a 5-star as this. But yeah, I can't wait for this. Can't wait for this. Thank you so much for watching. I tried to go for a bit more of a mellow vibe in this video, just because I feel like I want to kind of shed the on-camera, the upbeat on-camera persona and be more genuine. And I feel like this is more of a genuine me. And so the more I film, the more I'm going to try to do that. And so I just wanted this to be more of a cathartic video, because these are books that I'm really excited for, and some of them already have a near and dear place in my heart, so I'm really excited. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Please, it would be great if you could like, comment, especially if you could subscribe. That would be excellent. And I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and there's a bell. Don't know what it does. It gives you a notification if you hit it or something? I don't know. But we're trying to put out a video every Monday afternoon and Friday afternoon Australian times, and we'll always put up something on our story on Instagram to say if there's a new video out, so you probably don't need to bell. I've never belled. People tell me to bell and I don't bell. I got no idea what that's about. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and go. Okay, thank you so much for watching, guys. See you. Bye.